Hello, everyone. I'm North Hempstead Town Supervisor Judi Bosworth, and I, along with our town board, are proud to present At Home with North Hempstead, a series of special programs for children, seniors, as well as entertainment for residents of all ages. I hope you enjoyed this special presentation and check back often for new content.
This is Viviana Russell. I'm Councilwoman for the town of North Hempstead. And today we have a very special program for you today. As we are going into the holiday seasons, we're here today with the Bassett family to celebrate Kwanzaa. We have here with us Miss Nora Bassett. We have Miss Hawa Bassett, Hawa's children, Nazira, Nakai, and Naeem. And would like to welcome them onto our program today. And we're just going to have a conversation to hear about their experiences and how they celebrate Kwanzaa, why they celebrate Kwanzaa, how long they've been celebrating Kwanzaa, and to give us some in-depth information about the history of the Kwanzaa celebration. And so without further ado, I'd like to introduce Miss Nora Bassett. Hi, how are you this evening?
Hi, what a pleasure to be here this evening.
Great. And Hawa, Miss Hawa, how are you?
Hi, it's a pleasure. Thank you for having us.
Nazira, Naeem, Nakai, how are you?
Great. I feel great. It's a pleasure to be amazing. It's a pleasure to be here, and I am very grateful that I am allowed to be on this.
Oh,
I'm grateful to be with my family and stay with them.
Oh my goodness. So this, I know already this is going to be a great program. So for those of you that don't know, Kwanzaa is a celebration that started back in 1966. And I'm going to ask Miss Nora to give us a little bit more history about Kwanzaa.
Kwanzaa, again, as you said, started in around 1965, 1966 by Dr. Maulana Karanga. At a time in this country where developing awareness about their culture and political change and social change, all of that was really a big thing. And because of all of the activity going on, there were also times when people were going in different directions and maybe not as united and not as much togetherness as all like to have been experiencing. And this Kwanzaa kind of emerged or came about as an attempt to bring people together in a way that was common and acceptable and embraced by everyone. It's the very interesting thing about it is that even though it happens during the holiday season, Christmas and Hanukkah, that really gives us an opportunity to celebrate culture, to celebrate community, and to celebrate family. It was really, really a big thing then to celebrate family and community and our culture. So that's kind of how it all started.
Right. And so I understand that the word Kwanzaa itself means first.
Yes.
It's a celebration that happens over a period of 7 days. And there are 7 principles of Kwanzaa. And I'm going to ask Hawa if you can tell us about the 7 principles of Kwanzaa.
Okay, so there's 7 principles of Kwanzaa. It's Umoja, Kujichagulia, Ujima, Ujama, Nia, Kumba, Imani.
So Umoja is unity. Kujichagulia is self-determination. Ujima is responsibility. Ujama is cooperative economics. Nia is purpose. Kumba is creativity. And Imani is faith.
So what's very interesting is that you said that this is not a religious holiday. However, a lot of the principles you will find throughout most religious cultures and most religious beliefs. Creativity and faith and purpose are things that transcends through all religious backgrounds. And so although it's not a religious holiday, there are many people of many different faiths that celebrate Kwanzaa because it holds true to their own religious beliefs as well. And so that's something that's very, very interesting. And I don't think a lot of people knew that. So let's just talk for a minute about how and why you started to celebrate Kwanzaa.
Well-
And if you mind telling us what year it was when you started celebrating Kwanzaa.
Okay, first, part of the reason that I started celebrating Kwanzaa is for exactly what you just said, is because the principles touch in so many aspects of a person's life, any person's life, actually. I first got introduced to Kwanzaa when I went to college. And, on college campuses, you get exposed to a lot of very contemporary progressive concepts and ideals about what's going on. And I was able to have those experiences every year. For the 4 years that I was in school, we would have a Kwanzaa celebration. I actually thought that the whole country was celebrating Kwanzaa. It's amazing. I didn't realize that it was a small niche of people that even knew what we were talking about. But we every year. When I graduated from college, then I realized, oh, no one's really doing this off campus, because you couldn't find any of the materials that you needed, the symbols, Kwanzaa. You could hardly even get African print, like to cover a table with, to even make a Kwanzaa setting. And so the way I first started celebrating Kwanzaa would be to go to community events. So there would be, like the college would do something for the community. Even though we graduate, we would go back there and celebrate. If a community center knew about Kwanzaa and they would give something, we would go there. So I'm going to say that for me personally, to take full responsibility for giving a Kwanzaa experience to my family, I would say when Hawa was born, 1980.
Oh, thank you for sharing that.
Her age.
That's okay.
And at that time, I actually found myself using the Kwanzaa principles to celebrate Kwanzaa. So creativity, we had to be very creative about how we were going to find a piece of African cloth. There was no one had kanaras, which is the symbol that we put the candles in. I had, at that point where I was living, there were no green, red, black candles. You could get a red candle because it was Christmas time, but a black candle that you had to put in the center, that was almost impossible to find. So, I mean, creativity began as soon as I said, okay, I'm going to do this by myself for my family. Yeah.
And so how growing up, I know a lot of children, especially here in America, celebrate Christmas. And so can you talk about the difference in your surroundings where you had, I would say probably the majority of your peers celebrating Christmas and then you celebrating Kwanzaa. If you can tell us what that was like and what the resemblances of the two different holidays.
For me, I found that there were always a lot of similarities. Family coming together, reminiscing, looking back at the things that you've experienced throughout the year and kind of projecting what you're going to be doing for the new year, being grateful for having gifts in abundance or not having gifts and just being grateful for what you're able to acquire at the time. All of those were similarities. But what I did find through my personal journey with Kwanzaa was that, you'd go to school, and again, this is in the 80s, and you would decorate, you would do decorations or you would do activities for Christmas, but it took a real long time until everyone started acknowledging that there was a Kwanzaa. And then there would be, well, what is that? And how do you pronounce it? And so I found that in many situations, I had to be an advocate for something that was different. I had to be an advocate amongst other minorities or other African Americans for, celebrating our own culture and having to educate them on what it was and, being comfortable with adapting the language or the food or just the different symbolism, explaining to them, what is the Kanara? Why are the 3 or the 7 different candles important? What does the red, the black, and the green represent? Why is it, a gift per day for 7 days as opposed to just picking one day and opening everything up? It just seemed like, although I appreciate my mom exposing me early it just always seemed like it was a lot. It was a lot as a young person having to be the advocate for being pro-Black. That's what it felt like for a long time. Now it's a lot easier. An outcast? Is that how you feel?
I feel about getting.
You know what it is? It's being different.
Mm-hmm.
Even though we're in a country where we preach inclusion, you're not always included when you're not assimilating with what everybody else is doing. So it takes a certain amount of courage to stand up and say, I celebrate only this and not that. Does that make sense?
It does. It absolutely does. And so, and you touched on something. So typically around Christmas, well, sorry, let me take that back. So Dr. Karenga created the celebration for African Americans as a response to the commercialization or commercialism of Christmas. And so one of the reasons that it's important for people of color, African Americans or Black people, to celebrate Kwanzaa is because it's something that unites us as a community. I know we were having a conversation before about resiliency and community and family and unity and cooperative economics, and all of those principles that are celebrated through Kwanzaa are something that is innate in the African American or Black family or community, but it was just never a place for people to actually celebrate it. And so with the creation of Kwanzaa, it gave people of color a place and an opportunity to celebrate something that was familiar to them, something that was innate to them. And so I find it very interesting. A lot of people practice the principles of Kwanzaa and not even realize that they are the principles of Kwanzaa. And I think that's because what they practice, they created, Kwanzaa was created so that those principles would have one place for everyone to celebrate in unity. You also mentioned the symbols of Kwanzaa. Can you tell us what those symbols are?
So there's several. Ma, do you want to start?
Yeah, no, I wanted to just go back for a second.
Mm-hmm.
And Nazia, I wanted you to share something with the group that you and I discussed, if you don't mind. If you don't mind. And that is that many of, as you said, Viviana, many of the principles of Kwanzaa are actually a part of Black culture, the African American experience. And for so long, it was a given. If you were here and you're a person of color, you don't really have a choice about being weak or being strong. If you want to be here and stay alive, you're going to have to be strong. If you feel that being different is an issue, you have to adjust to it, because here you are considered different. Although if you are in the world, looking at the world as a whole, you may not really be that different, but here you're considered different. So these are things that we have been doing, and it has been working for us. Cooperative economics, taking responsibility. I think I shared with you, my father had a trucking business when we were growing up. Reality is that, a lot of people of color weren't exactly the first to be chosen for jobs. But by my father having that trucking business, he was able to provide work for people of color in the community that I lived in. And that's the beginning, or that's an example of cooperative economics, and also collective work and responsibility. And it was never celebrated. It was happening with no recognition. So Kwanzaa gave recognition to it. Kwanzaa acknowledged it and actually went to the point of celebrating it. And so that was a really, really big thing, to be able to say, to take a moment, with your family and say, I'm celebrating the fact that you have been strong. I'm no longer just taking it for granted that you are raising these children, you're fighting racism, you're taking responsibility in the community. We're not going to take it for granted. We're celebrating it. So it was a really, really big thing. And Howard, you can go ahead.
Yeah, so just to kind of build on that, that's the reason why there is a libation cup. The reason why there is a libation cup is because you're supposed to remember those who came before you, those who built the pathway for you. A big part of celebrating Kwanzaa is preparing for the next generation. My kids, My mother started celebrating Kwanzaa. She started celebrating it in 1980 and then continued on my entire lifetime. My children have been celebrating it for their lifetime as well. And I would hope that this is something that they would carry on until when they have children, just to kind of have an opportunity to reconnect with their culture. I would say, if I could be bold enough to say, African Americans are one of the only group of people here in the United States that have no culture other than the culture that we established right here when we got here. So celebrating Kwanzaa is an opportunity to reconnect with the language, to reconnect with the heritage, to reconnect with customs, to reconnect with the food, to reconnect with just the different cultures that was lost so many years ago.
Also, go back to the conversation about how the principles are a part of everyday life. Nazi, I didn't forget about you. Could you just share with what we were speaking about? I said to you, do you know the principles of Kwanzaa? You said yes. I said to you, do you apply the principles of Kwanzaa to your life? And you said yes. You picked two. Do you remember the two that we spoke about?
One comparison to real life that I've got to using faith was there's been like times at school where like something good or something bad may be happening, and I really want like the good thing to happen. So like, let's say I pray to God, that's putting faith to make sure that you get what you want. And for creativity, and like art and stuff, like I don't think people realize this. Like I don't realize this, but like a lot of times when like you speak and tell stories, like you're using your personal experiences and like adding your twist, adding different like little pieces from your inner mind to make it a better conversation. That's creative.
So I think, just to expand on that, I think it's important that everyone understands that when celebrating Kwanzaa, even though it's a 7-day experience, even though it's a 7-day holiday, you're actually supposed to carry those principles on into everyday life for the entire year. And so that's the conversation that you're hearing right now. Being creative in your everyday life, having faith in your everyday life, having purpose in your everyday life, collective work in economics, coming together with other people in your community to work towards a common goal, cooperative economics, reinvesting in your community, reinvesting in a group of people that you believe in. All of these are part of the 7 principles of Kwanzaa, and it's supposed to be practiced on a regular basis.
And you know what, Howard, it's an opportunity. Kwanzaa for me has always been an opportunity to kind of kick off the discussion of these principles on an ongoing basis. At the beginning of the year, we have this celebration and these principles come up, but the year I'm feeling for as we're being raised, I would constantly refer back to, oh, that's a Kwanzaa principle. Well, in Kwanzaa, it would have been this. Or I remember a couple of weeks ago, I was speaking to my older son, and he was speaking about some job that a team that he was working with on his job. And they were saying, oh, we're so glad that we have you, because whenever you're on the team, you're really good at organizing and planning out things and putting things together. And he, in return, was sharing with me, he was like, that's second nature to me, because that's how we were raised. There was always the conversation of we. Even now you hear me speaking, I'm constantly saying we. There was no I. We had a saying in our family, together we stand, divided we fall. So there is only we in family. And leads into every aspect of your life. When you show up at work, how is the workplace better because of you? If there's a problem with them, there's a problem with you. So everywhere you go, there should be a foundation of we, and we there. When you're raising children, you got 3 or 4 children and you're raising, whether you have mother and father and grandmother. I was raised mother, father, and grandmother. I had 9 brothers and sisters. It takes the whole village to raise them. Only be we. If you want success, there can only be we.
So what I love, and like what we just saw, the dynamic of the children speaking, Howard speaking, Miss Nora speaking. And so one of the important takeaways of Kwanzaa during the 7-day celebration is to ensure that the next generation carries on the values and respect and actively lives out the principles of Kwanzaa throughout the entire year. And so what strength do you pull from, Hawa, from your mother? And I'm going to ask you the same thing, Ms. Nora. What strength do you pull from your daughter? And Nazira, Naeem, and Nakai, what strength do you pull from your mother and your grandmother as it relates to Kwanzaa?
I think that I would say having the strength to sometimes stand alone, to sometimes acknowledge that you're not always going to be able to assimilate, but as long as you continue to do your best and be authentic in your true self and work hard and just fight the good dream, it'll work out. It took a long time to get to a space where people would accept a young lady named Hawa. A long time. For a long time, people would just not call me by my name. They refuse to accept the fact that if you are not exactly like them, or if they haven't been exposed to you, that it's easy to have implicit bias. So as my daughter just said, she said me too. So my name is Hawa. It means the first to give life. I am the only out of my mother's 3 children to create the next generation, to create grandbabies. In my household, that's a big deal. It's a big deal to have my name. My daughter's name is Nazira. It's a big deal to walk with these names that come from our culture. And it takes strength to do that. It takes strength to be 13 years old and to live in Long Island, New York, where you might be one of, there's two girls that look like you?
No.
There's one? There's 3.
No, I'm part of
My daughter is part of 3 in a class of, in all her classes, she's the only African-American person.
except for like the extra.
Okay. So that takes strength. It takes strength. It takes strength to be the only person in your class. It takes strength to be different and to still walk with your head up high. It takes strength to not feel some kind of way when people say things that are blatantly rude or racist. And you just kind of, okay, I hear you. And now I understand how to address you. So what did I take from my mother? I took courage. I took strength, tenacity. I took perseverance. I took an absolute disregard for failure. No matter what I put my mind to, I absolutely believe that I'm going to accomplish it once I put 150% in it. And I hope that I instill that in my children. You have to have strength in order to be African American in the United States of America, whether it was 1950 something when my mother was, moving around freely, or whether it's 2020. I feel like the most recent events that we've experienced shows that there are still trials and tribulations that we experience. And Kwanzaa is just a small part of taking your power, self-determination, determining who I am as a person and not allowing the people who are around me to tell me who I am or to tell my children who they are. Do you agree? What do you think? What strength do you think that you take from mom?
The strength that I take from my mother and grandma, I feel I take like having a purpose on this earth from them, and also being independent. Like my mom said, she would say this, being self-aware of my surroundings and who I'm around and what to do, what not to do around the certain people that I'm around, because people always have certain views of you, so that may not be true. So that's one thing I really I've gotten better at acting the right way. Not like that.
The fact that my daughter has to say that, acting the right way in public.
Yeah.
That tears at my heart.
So I show too much.
Yeah, you can't show too much. You can't show too little. You have to, and you know, Ma, you may cruise, you may say something to me for saying this, but understanding how to code switch and being able to learn how to navigate around the obstacles that are presented to us. You know, you just have to know and just brother, because if you don't, you're gonna suffer. And I learned that. I would say the biggest thing that I'm learning in life, and I'm gonna bring it back to Kwanzaa. Even though there's a lot of celebration in Kwanzaa, we don't necessarily have the opportunity to just be, to just celebrate. And so Kwanzaa has become an instrument of empowerment, an instrument of reconnection, an instrument of teaching each other to be okay with simply being our authentic original selves. Even this, the way I look right now, this is not my authentic original self. This is what would be considered acceptable in 2020 United States. I can't walk around with my hair in an Afro puff and get to the level of success that I would want to. I don't believe I can, at least.
These are buns.
But you can. You can. I'm here to tell you that you can.
It would be difficult. It would be difficult.
I actually had an experience like that. A couple years ago, I went to camp with my hair in Africa, and my friend looked at me like I was crazy. It just made me think.
So self-determination, Kuji Chakalia. Again, one of the principles of Kwanzaa, just I determine what works for me. I determine what's acceptable. I determine what's acceptable. No one else.
Good. So Nakai, Naeem, let me hear from you two.
Yes.
Oh, it's time to go first. I like being with my family and getting gifts and being with them and loving them.
Aww. Aww. That's so cute. Go ahead, Naeem.
Well, what I think I have taken from my mother, Hala Bassett, my grandmother, Nora Bassett, I think what I have taken is like the brains, because I am very smart.
Yeah.
The looks, because I'm very cute. So I find another thing. And I also think I've taken being a good person. It's always good to do the right thing and be a better person and be a good person.
Oh,
You're such an amazing person.
You're gonna make me cry, Chase.
it's the dimples.
Yes. Okay, Miss Nora, let's hear from you.
He actually had a speech that he wanted to say.
No, he's not gonna say a speech.
It's actually really good. I read it.
Stoney wrapped it up.
I can still read it for you if you would like.
It's
It's really good.
Let grandma go.
Thank you.
Sure.
Actually,
Nah, I think I'm gonna read it for him because
can I say
it's really, really good.
Okay, yes, say your speech.
no,
No, it's fine.
No, go ahead, say it, please.
Yeah, it's really good. And I was like, when I read it, I was like, wow, this is like the amount of effort and creativity that he put in it is immaculate. Like, and I really was honored to read it in my head.
I saved it in my phone, like just in case.
Go ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Kwanzaa is an annual celebration of African American culture, which is held from December 26th to January 1st, culminating in gift giving and the Feast of Faith, called Karuma Ya Imani. It was created by Maluna Karenga and first celebrated in 1966. Date, Saturday, December 26th.
That's this year, December 26th.
So technically, that's not a speech.
Yeah,
So, but it's nice to know that at 9 years old, he can go onto the internet and do his own research to have a better understanding of what we celebrate.
Yeah, high five for that.
He tried.
Right, he still did good. Thank you, Chase. So
Thank
now,
you.
Ms. Laura,
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
tell us, how did that make you feel listening to your grandchildren and your daughter talk about the strengths that they pulled from one another and what she pulled from you? And then what strengths do you pull from them?
Well, it was just amazing because I was thinking to myself, I would say the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say the same thing because I was told by my parents, my father, my mother, the most important thing is not what other people tell you you are, but what you decide you are. Self-determination was ingrained in me. As a matter of fact, we grew up in a totally integrated environment. Our family was the only Black family in the entire town.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was always, this thing between us, them judging us and comparing us and labeling us. And I remember, my father saying to me, no matter what anybody in the school or in the community, no matter what they say, the rule is that pertains to you, like you can't do this, or you guys don't do this. They're not talking about you. You're the exception to every Black rule that they mention. Any rule that they have for Black people or Negroes, they used to be called Negroes, whatever the rules are for Negroes, doesn't apply to you. You're the exception. You determine who you are. You determine what you're going to be. You determine what you're going to believe in. You determine what you're going to have. You determine what you're going to accomplish in life. And I heard Chase say something about being smart. One of the things that we believed was one of the primary tools of self-determination was intelligence. So we're going to college, we're going to school, we're the smartest one in the class. We're going to compete in competitions. We're going to be at the top of this game. Never look over here. You want to look for somebody at the bottom, because that's not happening in this family. The Bassett family, we support the community. We roll 10 strong. Nobody, we start off with 10 people. One mother, one father, 10 children. That's who we are. So we define that. My responsibility, purpose, I was to invest and do everything that I can spiritually to improve the quality for the next generation. So my mother, my father, everything so that I can sit the way I sit, speak, live the way I live, and I will sacrifice everything so that my children will never have to live this life that I live. Even though I live a there should be better. Every generation should be better and better and better until we return to what we are truly entitled of and what we deserve as human beings to be able to achieve your greatest level. Not just what somebody says is okay for you. I decide what's okay for me. And I haven't seen the limit. There is.
So Councilwoman Russell, it's no secret that I was apprehensive about recording this and participating in this, because not sometimes, I would say for me, it takes a lot of courage to tell the story of what Kwanzaa is, because it is the story of overcoming. It is the story of triumph. And I would say when you're in the minority community, it's a common story that's told. But when you are with the majority, sometimes it's hard to stand up courageously and to say, even though it's no disrespect intended to anyone else, it's sometimes hard to say, I have suffered in my experiences and I'm celebrating being triumphant. I am celebrating reconnecting with my culture. I am celebrating my name, my heritage, my people, my color. It takes strength to be okay with standing up and saying it. And it takes strength to be able to share this with people.
Yeah.
Well, I thank you all for sharing this with us. It's something that needed to be heard. It's something that needed to be said in an authentic way. And that's why I'm glad that we're able to do it with your family, the 3 generations, because this is a celebration of life and family and culture and ancestry. And so the generations speak to that. And Ms. Dora, you mentioned something that that really stuck with me. You said, together we stand. And then you said something yesterday to me, we work our way through it.
Yeah.
And so we and the our, everything is done collectively. And you touched on that a little bit earlier. Everything is done collectively. I can tell you, your daughter works in my office. Everyone knows that. And she brings that to the table in the office. You know, it's a constant reminder that as we're doing community work, as we're doing public service work, it's about the we and the our and us. All of us are included in everything that we do. We have to look at how our actions impact others, but also being strong and being self-determined and having a self-respect and making sure people value who you are for who you are and meeting you at that place where you are. And so, I mean, this has been really delightful. I do want to touch on the symbols of Kwanzaa and how do you celebrate Kwanzaa in your home? What do you do on January 1st? What do you do? And it's very interesting that you end the year celebrating Kwanzaa. You start the end of the year celebrating Kwanzaa, and you begin the new year. You end Kwanzaa, but you begin the new year with a huge celebration. Tell me about that.
It's a lot. There's drummers and there's music and there's an abundance of children. There's always an abundance of children. Good food too. Good food and just laughter and kind of touching bases with people to see, you know, how can you network? How can we work together? What can we do to collectively push the group forward? I would love to invite you to it when we're out of COVID. It's definitely.
I already invited myself.
Yes. It's definitely. For me. It's the biggest event of the year. It is the absolute biggest event of the year. It's how you end the old year and how you start the new year. Embraced and surrounded by family and friends and like minds. Just kind of touching bases on. That's my baby on my feet kicking me. Touching bases on one of the symbols is just having corn, a stalk of corn on the table to represent the next generation, to represent everything that we're doing right now is creating the foundation and the building blocks for what we're trying to secure for them. Everything that I'm doing in life in general is for my kids, but that symbolism, that tenacity, that drive that runs me, it comes from Kwanzaa. And it's for my next generation. Remember, I've only ever celebrated Kwanzaa. I've never celebrated anything else. So I always joke with people that I've never actually decorated a Christmas tree before. My daughter has. Oh, well, that's with Dad, right? So that's another example of how we do it. Dad, well, you're 9, so it can't be that many times. But Dad celebrates Christmas. So every year we do Christmas and we do Kwanzaa. So my kids actually get an abundance of gifts. The gifts usually are supposed to be representative of things that you need, representative of the principles, things that feed into that concept of purpose and faith and creativity and cooperative economics, encouraging them to be entrepreneurs, encouraging them to push the envelope a little bit further than what they did the year before. It's a good time. Do you guys, you enjoy celebrating Kwanzaa?
Yeah. Yes.
Stop.
It's a beautiful time to spend time with family. It's a beautiful time to spend time with family, be nice, have fun, and like it's an amazing experience. And most people say it's like another version of Christmas, but really it's more than that.
It's different.
Can I add on to your comment?
Yes, you know.
Kwanzaa is basically more meaningful Christmas.
No, not more meaningful, different.
Yeah, different. But they're definitely 2 different holidays. They're different holidays for a reason. And I'm appreciative for both.
They both
do. And my other
They both have the same value. Christmas is not better than Kwanzaa, and Kwanzaa is not better than Christmas.
Exactly.
They both have the same value, and they're both amazing holidays.
My brilliant child.
My children. Some people's
My
favorite.
brilliant children.
My favorite holiday is Kwanzaa. What is your favorite holiday, Nazi Mommy? And if Stone comes back over here.
It's now turned into the Bassett Children's Show.
That's okay. It's okay. I love it. I love it. So, Miss Nora, can you tell me about the mat, the symbol of the mat, and what does that mean? And what does that symbolize?
You know, it's interesting because the mat is small. It's a small thing, and it's usually something that's handmade, and it's just placed at the foundation, and that's what it symbolizes, the foundation that we stand on, and the thing that we will always remember. And within that, the symbolism of, you know what, no matter what we do with all the gifts that we may, you know, have available, we always remember the foundation that we stand on and where we come from. And that's the mat. That's the mat must always be there. Yeah.
So on the first night of Kwanzaa, what do you do in the Bassett household? What do you do on the first night of Kwanzaa? Take me through day 1 through day 7.
Well, for me,
So,
okay, go ahead. You
When
go.
you're together.
no, go ahead.
Well, day 1 is easy because that's the sit down. That's the sit down. The first day of Kwanzaa is unity. And, you know, we say, all right, this is it. And everything. The next 7 days, everybody pitch in. We're going to make this, you know, like a fabulous experience. Every day, everybody have a day when you're going to do something to remind us of the principle of that day and create an experience around it. So day 1 is the kickoff. And I like it because that's when I get a chance. And then I turn it over to them. And then they scutter around and start trying to do little things.
Also that first day of Kwanzaa. So, and this is, you know, this is something that's particular to our family because we have there's a strong sense of what next, where are we going next? So that first day of Kwanzaa for us is usually the beginning of that conversation of what is the next year going to look like? What is the goal for the family? What is the goal for the children? How are we going to move forward? And each day as we go throughout Kwanzaa, we're usually adding a little bit more to that plan of what life is going to look like, whether it was, you know, moving from Queens to Long Island, or whether it was moving, you know, from one style home to a next, something bigger, whether it's, you know, changing career. It's always something towards, it's always a collective goal that everyone in the family is working towards for the betterment of life for everyone. And so for us, our immediate family would be, you know, my mom, my older brother, my mom and her children, my children, a couple of uncles. Yeah. Usually there's close friends of the family, and it's usually kind of like a conversation. So what's your plan? Oh, what are you now doing? What is your, you know, what is your business? Are you an entrepreneur? Okay, so how can we bring that into the fold? It's, you know, it's definitely a very festive time.
And what you're saying reminds me of the fact that once you declare on the first day, like what your thing is, what you're going to be about, that the next day, which is the Kujichagulia, self-determination, we're now expecting to start seeing it. So everybody wants to see, okay, how do you define that? So you say you want to be an entrepreneur. What you being an entrepreneur, what does that look like? So define it, tell us, you know, show us. Bringing things into the home, either in your behavior, in your speech, in discussions about contacts or connections that you've made, or actual examples of what you're doing. You have to start showing it. The next day, we expect you to, because we're going to follow you. We're going to join in, and we're going to do what we do. We're going to do we. So give us some direction, definition, define it. Yeah. That's
And if I could just build on that, Ma, it's a, you know, as my mother said, she's one of 10, right? And so when one person comes up with the one goal, and everyone in the family collectively comes together and they're putting their resources and their thinking and their power, that thinking, everyone thinking of the same thing at the same time, it's pretty hard not to succeed, whether it's our children's education, or again, whether it's something, you know, acquiring something for the family as a whole. I can't really say that there's been many times in my life where we have come together collectively and decided as a unit that this is something that we're going to work towards, and we weren't successful. The power of having multiple people in one family working towards one goal, mind, body, and spirit, is just, it's something that I wouldn't give up ever. It's the
Right.
faith, it's purpose,
Yeah.
self-determination, cooperative economics, collective work and responsibility. I can't keep saying it enough because the principles are implemented every single day of our lives, and they work.
There's an accountability. It holds you accountable to your family and your friends and your peers.
And
Because when you have accountability, it's really hard to fail.
that's pressure, you know, like I hear, and it's no disrespect to anyone and how they their children, but like people that say they spank their children, you know, and do the right thing. I wasn't raised being spanked, and I don't, you know, I'm not a spanker. But if the collective is working on something and you're not holding your weight, the embarrassment and ridicule.
It's worse than a spanking. Yes.
Yes.
I was done. I'm sorry. I was supposed to pick up that package so that you needed. I will get it. Teasing and laughing, and everybody got their stuff. How about you? You didn't bring the book? Oh wow, you know. So yeah. And by the way, there's no it's not a fight or an argument. My son said this to me the other day. He was saying there was no pressure about, oh, you have to do the dishes and you have, you know, we had this conversation. You have to cook and you wait a minute. We need money for mortgage payments and or rent or car payments or whatever it is. We need food made. We need children babysat. We need people picked up for after school programs. Okay, who has the potential to bring in the most money? Well, that should be the person who should be working. And then who's available now to pick people up and cook? Well, those are the people that should be picking up and cooking, not me. So the decision's made. I'm not begging you. I'm not threatening you. I'm not beating you and negotiating with you. We are moving this family forward. I'm doing this part. What are you doing? And you're held accountable for it. I come in from work. Here's the money. Mortgage is paid. Where's the food? The food's not made. Wow, that's the kind of person you are?
Wow.
Wait, so Councilwoman, I think I'm going to circle back to what you originally said. What does Kwanzaa look like? What does the first, the second, the third day of Kwanzaa looks like? Each year it looks different, but every year it's the celebration of what we've accomplished and the preparation for what we're working towards.
Yes.
So there's no one specific way to say what day 1, day 2, day 3, or day 4 will look like, but every year it's the celebration of everything we've accomplished and it's the preparation for where we're going for the following year. It's really an amazing time for us.
We're very flexible. I have to say this, and kids, this is for the children. One of the things that as African American, you know, African American, we are the blend of these continents. We're the blend of the cultures, you know, from miles and miles apart. So one of the things that my kids always, and I know my grandchildren are doing it to you now, Hawa, around Christmas time, the communities are full of Christmas lights.
Yeah.
Well, that's not necessarily a part of Kwanzaa, but because we're being creative in how we express it, we can add anything that we choose. I have always added the light and decorated with whatever our Kwanzaa display is. You will always see like a little string of light, like around someplace around a table or something, because that was the thing that gave them the connection to the American experience in them. We have this, but we are also that too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I would say part of celebrating Kwanzaa initially, it was always, you know, you should be creative with your gift giving. You know, how do you encourage someone to further themselves in school? How do you support someone if they're looking to go into music? How do you use your gift to enhance the child or enhance the person that you're giving the gift to? So for me, it's taken some time. You're not really supposed to be materialistic, but I have to I have to say these kids, they got the material bug. Yes, Grandma? Lots of cell phones and laptops and things of that nature. But in speaking to Dad, yes, computers, tablets, cell phones. Thank you for sharing that. But one of the things that they don't realize is that the reason why you have to have a laptop is because we're distance learning. The reason why you have to have a laptop is because even at 9 years old in 2020, you have to be abreast of the technology and how quickly it's changing. So they think, I know, they think that they're getting away with getting a fancy gift when actually there's intention behind every gift that they're receiving, whether it's a video game, because maybe my child is going to be a software designer, or whether it's a computer because they have to stay abreast of technology, or whether it's something as simple as a skateboard, because this one has to develop his coordination and his fine motor skills. You want a skateboard too?
Yeah, I have one. Then
That's
you
you
don't
know
know how to skateboard.
And then we moved from the person who has 2 hoverboards.
That's you don't even know how to skateboard.
But the point is,
You don't.
the creativity is getting a gift that will mold the person, mind, body, and spirit.
Mhm. Always.
So you touched on exactly what I was going to ask. If there was a purpose behind the gifts that you give, and evidently there is. It's a
for
part
sure.
of encouraging and holding them accountable, because you're making sure that they have the tools necessary to move forward. Like, you're very intentional about what you do, why you do it, and how you do it, so that collectively the family can continue to grow. And I think that that's a culmination of what Kwanzaa is all about, supporting one another. Family is a big key of why you celebrate Kwanzaa and the reasons why you celebrate it. So before we wrap up, is there anything else that you want people to know about Kwanzaa and the Kwanzaa celebration that we haven't touched on already?
I would say, I think it's important that people understand that Kwanzaa is inclusive. You can be a person of color and celebrate Kwanzaa as well as celebrating Christmas. Kwanzaa is just about tapping in to a lost culture that sometimes you need in order to fill your spirit, fill your soul.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I
Ms. Nora?
think that I would add that, as you mentioned in the beginning, this whole idea was created on giving less emphasis to materialism and more emphasis to the inner person.
Mm-hmm.
And so as we go about year after year, I see Kwanzaa beginning to be advertised and celebrated around the communities. And I'm glad, like McDonald's is celebrating, and this, and because I think, yeah, everybody's doing it, but let's hold on to the core beliefs, which is non-materialistic, non-commercialization, and the principles of believing in self and determining yourself for yourself, and collective work and responsibility. Hold on to the principles, because that's what it's really all about. That's what it's.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I was going to ask one more question, but I think that is like the perfect note to end on. And so I want to thank you all, Ms. Nora, Hawa, Nazira, Naeem, and Nakai. Thank you all so much. Thank you for bringing us into your homes, into your life, into your family, and explaining to us what Kwanzaa means, how you celebrate it. It's so appreciated. I really, really, from the bottom of my heart, really appreciate this. And thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.